All right. Yeah. So, without further ado, I'm pleased to introduce Rebecca Bailey, who is going to talk to us about the Vermillion South Dakota Shakespeare Festival.
Good afternoon. I'm just going to, wrong click. This click. Wonderful. Hello, everybody. I know, I like conversation, right? Thank you so much for having me back here again this year to visit with you about what has been going on for South Dakota Shakespeare Festival, about the incredible performances and workshops and all of the things. Did I turn this on? Am I on? Okay, great. Did the wonderful performances, workshops, and things that are happening in the community this year. And most importantly, some thank yous and conversations about the work that you as Rotary, that you as a community have done to make this a reality this year. So, seeing if this works, South Dakota Shakespeare Festival became a to be or not to be conversation, right? I am so sorry. Rich, Greg, can someone hand me my phone? I had something I wanted to share off of it, and then I usually don't bring my phone with me up for these. That became a large part of the conversation this year. Thank you. Where would I be without Greg Huckabee? Lost is the answer, along with a few other folks sitting out here. But that became a reality with the loss of the South Dakota Humanities Council and some of the other grants and types of funding that existed. So I want to share with you something that just came up in the past week, and just so that we understand what could have been this year. This came from the Michigan Shakespeare Festival. At the moment, we are considering if there is a future for the festival. Over the last 30 years, it has grown from the typical festival in a park to a professional union house with Broadway talent. With that growth has come increased costs that have proven as unsustainable. Our greatest regrets are for our artists, who were expecting both employment and creative outlet this summer, and for our audiences, who were expecting another stellar season of great Shakespeare. It is impossible not to feel we've let them, you, down. Yet we will try to remember that it is the impermanence that makes theater unique. While other art forms are captured, live performance simply is. And then it is not. It vanishes into the air and exists only in memory. It is the ephemeral nature of the art that makes it beautiful. So we are sad, yet we know we did all we could, and there are others this summer who will be doing great work, conspiring with audiences to bring these plays to life. And South Dakota Shakespeare Festival is one of those that is carrying on. But that really was a question. They had to let their actors know 2 days before actors were scheduled to arrive into town that they were not going to be able to complete their season. And so for folks who make a living and for our reputation, I am so grateful to this town, to this community for stepping up, that we were able to continue those contracts that we had made, and that we are able to continue this great work. South Dakota Shakespeare Festival, just so we remember and so that I continue to share, just like you all start off with the questions at the beginning of this, are we meeting this? This is our mission, and everything I ask when we put forward a season, when I bring these ideas and this excitement to you, goes back to this mission. And it has been our mission since the inception and the creation of this. South Dakota Shakespeare Festival is to engage, connect, and inspire communities by exploring our shared human experience through inclusive professional Shakespeare productions and theater arts education. We are about access. We are about professional, artistic integrity, right, and excellence, accessibility. That's why it streams, that people who can't come to us, but even more importantly, people who can't come to us, like the Juvenile Detention Center. This year we are increasing, we will be there 4 times over the next 5 weeks with programming. So I bring back to you, I do want to say this. We stay true to our mission. We've stayed true to our values. And most importantly, what we remember, this is last year, and you can't quite see the rainbow very well with the light here, but this was during Merchant of Venice last year. And we stay close to our home. It's the roots of what we have sown in this community, of what you all sow, and what you continue to plant that allow this. We are branching out into further parts of South Dakota. Our ability to reach new audiences and different demographics and folks across the state is growing. And yet we are also, the Shakespeare Festival is what exists here in Vermillion, and that hasn't changed, doesn't change. Our actors come and they are living here. We were at CC's, they were downtown at Tuesday Trivia, and they become a part of your community in this incredible cultural exchange that happens as we give them, or as they give us what their talents are, their gifts, their experiences, and we give back to them our talents, our culture, who we are. And when they go back to everywhere from the Philippines to New York to San Jose, I think but California, we have somebody from LA, right? When they go back, Boston, Virginia, and they talk about here, that award about the small town arts, they go back and they say, oh my goodness, right? And they talk about it and they share. And all I have heard since they walked in the door is how welcoming and opening this community has been, their host families have been. So there are a number of those folks sitting out here too who have opened their homes and invited them into their homes, right? So our home is an important part of this. This is this year's company, so we have Romeo and Juliet. We have our lovely cast. There are far more people. There are a couple of the company members involved in there, and there are a number of people who are nowhere pictured because they weren't here the other day just for that photo. Right, but this is the season that you often see. But just like I mentioned, the Juvenile Detention Center, that we're there 4 times, that we are working with Upward Bound, we do 2 to 3 days of programming with them. And I ask the question all the time, and this is conversation, right? What do you think when I say we are going to teach programming to this group for a certain period of time, or what we're doing? What do you think we teach? I'm just curious. What is it you think we go and do? What is it we think we do?
Costume making.
Costume making. So maybe we talk about how do we build some of the costumes or the pieces or what goes into that. Great. Sometimes that what happens.
My kids participated, so
we've done that a lot. We talk about a lot of why we choose what costumes too and what goes into that. What else?
How about sound and lighting?
Okay. We have, interestingly enough, because there's a lot of sound issues, music in a park, there's a lot of sound. Lighting, we don't have as much because we're outdoor, but yes, those things can be. What else? Anybody else? Application of performance? Yes, and I want to even say it differently. Much of what I do has to do with actually how we relate to each other. What is it about a shared human experience that connects us? How do we recognize empathy? How do we recognize what it is to walk in someone else's shoes, to understand what that means? And in a world where divisiveness and the things that tear us apart can be easier to see than the things that bring us together, theater reminds folks, A, how to use that this is a safe place, and helps me to go back and find confidence in who I am, safety and confidence. It also teaches me how to work with other people, whether it's healthy boundaries, how to work together and have to make compromises and struggle to put something together that amounts to it, and then gives me positive reinforcement when people applaud, when people recognize it. I spent a couple of weeks ago Zooming into the International Trauma Conference in Boston. And theater is one of the #1 ways that they are talking about in building resilience, healing, coming together with positive relationships again after I've lost the confidence to have those. My friends, when I go to the juvenile detention center, I would love if they got bit by the theater bug. Nothing would make me happier as the theater kid, the person who didn't have a place to fit in, and I found all of that for me in theater. And that's a repeated story with so many of the folks that are on that picture, right? But if they actually walk away recognizing that they're different experiences, having walked a mile in someone else's shoes, if they think about, I didn't like what they did, but I have to make a choice at how to work together because we have to get to this other end goal, and people are counting on me. If they start to make those connections, that's the success. That's what I'm there teaching. Confidence, communication, being able to own a narrative about themselves to decide how I want to be seen, and finding a way to voice it. These are the wins. I do teach acting. I do teach costume design. I do teach how to tell story. But a lot of what we are teaching is actually relating in human beings and understanding these stories are about how someone else felt and what happened. 2 houses, both alike in dignity this summer, right? And yet we see the ending of this play. You watch a play knowing the ending of this play, right? So we all know where it's headed. But if these students can make different decisions and they can recognize what was lost by the Montagues and the Capulets, and they make a decision to do something different, and they talk about it in their lives, what would Romeo and Juliet look like for them? That's the win. That's what I go out and teach. And yes, along the way, if I have someone who wants to be an actor, sign me up. Let's have that class too. I'll talk about how to break down a monologue. I'll talk about going into a Shakespeare audition and how to use the language and all of those pieces. But it's not just for someone who wants to be an actor. It's for human beings to remember what it is to walk this journey, to walk this path, and that you and you and you and you, we're all walking with a lot of wants and needs and feelings, and if I don't look at what it might be, I'm missing a whole big part of the picture, because it's about connection, right? So there we go. This year, like I said, we are expanding. This is us last year here, which is where we will have our South Dakota Shakespeare Festival, the 18th through the 21st. Nope, sorry, 26th through 29th. I went that direction. Should have done it the other way. Prentice Park. We will also have Shakespeare Trivia Night. We will also have Bark with the Bard. Bring your dog. We're going to walk our happy 5K on the set. You can get pictures, right? Because we want to involve the community. There's a community conversation, but we will also be exploring on the Sylvan Green outdoors in Brookings, South Dakota. They will be having their first performance of live theater in that space, and they are welcoming us as a part of their season. And it means that more people across the state see what you sponsored here, what started here with you, and what you all have brought to life. So thank you, thanks, and more thanks. That is the website. It is beautifully updated with our new updated logo that gets us. I did get a lot of questions at one point. You can't see the red one very well because I used a red background, but there are 3 flags. That's how they used to tell if it was a comedy tragedy, right? We have replaced the windmill with the pole that was up over the globe that said, there's theater happening today, and then it told you what you were going to see. So that is sort of the history of how that became, even though it's morphed over the years. Does anybody have any questions that I can answer? Yes.
Does the festival have enough money to, this year, or do you still need donations?
Beautiful. And in addition, volunteers are also welcome. We will turn down no help. Whether it is financial, whether it is time, everybody has gifts to give. But on that financial question, so thanks to the city who voted to meet, and it closed out the budget, which means we were able to bring actors here and know that I can pay their contracts. What that does not mean is that if that festival closes and none of that changes, we do not have the money to actually start through the following year existing as a corporation. So unlike Michigan, our Michigan Shakespeare Festival, unlike that, hold on, we can pay the contracts for our actors this year. I knew when I brought them in that we may not be able to pay everything exactly the way we would have liked or do everything the way we would have liked, but I will be able to pay actors who are here. And that was our first and foremost concern. But the reality is, and that's why I started in their note, I don't know about the future, right? They shut their doors for this year and they're not sure they will reopen. I don't know, without us looking at how this changes, especially if we do not have grants that come in and help the arts exist. I do not know what the future will be as far as how we reopen next year without continuing to talk about donations and help and sponsorship for this company. So the fight isn't over. Thank you, Betty. It's very much not over. And yet I am quite believing that we aren't going anywhere, because I'm not doing it without a fight, and neither is this town and this community from what I've seen. So, any other questions? Thank you, Betty. I will. Really, that applause goes both ways. So thank you all.